Hey everyone, I'm back with more Pokemon content, and today we'll be looking at the team that I attempted the Pokemon World Tournament in Pokemon Black 2 and White 2 with. Now I know what you're thinking, this video is outdated as heck. Yeah, it has been what, a decade since these games came out? Well, late is better than never I guess, and I think there are some Pokemon strategies that are still relevant to this day, so I think it's interesting to watch this nonetheless. The World Tournament is a facility in Black 2 White 2 where you can pit yourself against past gym leaders and champions. It's notoriously difficult, but with the team that I'm about to showcase today, we managed to cruise through it with ease. So on the top, you'll see me battling through the World Leaders Tournament twice, followed by the Champion Tournament, to give you a sense of how this team runs. Right, so let's dive into the team. This is a very sand-based team led by Tyranitar with Excadrill and Garchomp in the back. So as you can tell, this is a hyper-offensive team, which is pretty fun to use. You complete battles fairly quickly and you kill lots of enemies in two hits if not one. It is a very strong sand team because every single one of your Pokemon benefit from the sandstorm weather, giving tremendous advantage to your team, while also being completely immune to the effects of sandstorm. On the other hand, enemy Pokemon are subject to chip damage every single turn, so having the weather in your favor helps so much. And this is kind of unique to Generation 5 because in Generation 5, Tyranitar's Sandstream ability, which is what sets up the sand, lasts for the entire duration of the battle until the weather is replaced by another weather changing effect. This was updated in future generations, but this makes Sandstream very powerful in this particular version of the game because it will be up for the whole battle, so your Pokemon will benefit from it throughout the entire game. As you notice, all three of my attackers are physical offensive Pokemon, so they are all using physical damage, which seems like a weakness. Generally, you want to have a well-rounded team that is able to deal damage multiple ways, but as you'll soon see, their raw power just, overshadows anything that my enemies can throw at me. Finally, it's important to talk about typings because by definition, to benefit from Sandstorm, we are restricted to using certain types: ground types, rock types, steel types, and so the type diversity is not quite there. We do have some weak typings that we're quite worried about. Fighting and water types give us a huge amount of trouble, as they're both super effective against our first two Pokemon, and Garchomp does not resist them either. So these can be really scary, especially if you're up against a gym leader that specializes in those typings. Alright, so let's look at each individual Pokemon and how they are built. Starting with my lead, that's Tyranitar. The item here is the Chopper Berry. This is a berry that weakens super effective fighting type moves. So obviously, Tyranitar is 4 times weak to darkness, and we can't have that. We cannot be going down to attacks in one hit. And that's because Tyranitar has very good defense stats, probably the best of the 3 Pokemon I brought. In fact, Tyranitar's defense and special defense are both above 100, which isn't the case for Excadrill and Garchomp. So yeah, this is one thick boy. Plus 50 special defense because Sandstorm is up and I'm a rock type Pokemon, so we have that sand benefit already helping us from turn 1, giving us extra special defense. So because of our beefy defense stats, we are not worried about getting one shot even by super effective attacks. Actually, most as long as they're not super high power attacks like Hydro Pump, generally we will live to survive one super effective hit. The exception is of course the dark type, which we are 4 times weak to, which is why the Chopper Berry is our item of choice. As mentioned, our ability is Sandstream, which allows us to summon a Sandstorm in battle, which will typically last for the entire game. It's very rare that AI enemies will actually use weather effects against you. So generally you can expect Sandstream to be up the entire game, and even if they do replace your weather effects, your Pokemon can still stand very strong on their own. So Yes, very powerful, mainly here to set up the sand, but can pack a punch as well. It has a formidable attack stat and a decent speed as well. The moveset we are bringing, of course, will synergize with our own typings, Rock and Dark type. So for those of you who don't know, in Pokemon, whenever you use an offensive move that matches your typing, in this case Rock or Dark move, its power is boosted by 50%. So this is why I've modified the numbers. Rock Slide and Crunch are normally 80 power, but with the same type attack bonus or stab bonus, you can essentially think of it in your head as a base 120 power move after factoring in stab, which makes them actually stronger than the Earthquake, which comes in at base 100 power, but it's not powered up by the same type attack bonus. So yeah, we have very strong moves, all of them at least 100 power after stab. And Rock Slide and Crunch even have some bonuses tagged on top of them. Rock Slide can cause your opponents to flinch if they are slower than you, and Crunch can provide a very crucial defense drop which will help you follow up with a kill. Note that Rock Slide is the only move in the entire team that has a chance of missing. It's a 90% accurate move in this generation, so we have to keep that in mind. If an enemy is in KO range of any of our moves, we would prefer using a non-Rock Slide move to avoid playing around with the 10% miss chance. Now, we have an interesting egg move in Dragon Dance. This is an interesting move that allows us to boost our power if we are up against a Pokemon that has no way of taking us out, like defensive Pokemon for example. Setting ourselves up by boosting our speed and attack will put us in a very commanding position to take out the Pokemon in front of us, but also to sweep the Pokemon behind. So if we ever find ourselves in a situation where we are not threatened at all, a Dragon Dance can easily lead us to victory. So yeah, that's Tyranitar in a nutshell. It's a very powerful Pokemon. The slowest of our 3 Pokemon actually, before a Dragon Dance. So we have to keep in mind that sometimes we will get outsped by our enemy's lead Pokemon, but that's fine because even if we get outsped, we will usually live to see to at least return 1 hit, and even if we don't knock out the first Pokemon, Tyranitar did its job. It set up the sand so that our other 2 Pokemon can come in and clean house. Next up is Excadrill. This Pokemon is just broken for a non-legendary. And that's all due to its Sand Rush ability, which boosts its speed in a sandstorm by 100%. That is basically faster than anything you'll go up against. Even Pokemon with Choice Scarf can't really match our speed. So we can always expect to go first, short of priority moves. That's something we need to keep in mind. So other than that, we are always going first and we are going to just dominate the field. Because of our paper thin defenses, you can see our defense stats are basically half that of Tyranitar's. This is our Pokemon of choice to put the Focus Sash item on, allowing us to survive 1 hit at the very least. Right, it's the perfect Pokemon for doing that, and you always want to put your Focus Sash on your most fragile and fastest Pokemon so that you'll guarantee getting at least 2 hits off with Excadrill. Same thing, we are going to leverage on the same type attack bonus of Excadrill, being a dual type. So we have super effective ground type and steel type attacks in Earthquake and Iron Head respectively. So Earthquake is your bread and butter, but sometimes you have to switch to Iron Head in case enemies are immune to ground type attacks, namely they are levitating or flying. Iron Head is nice as well, just like Rock Slide, it has a chance to flinch. Failing that, there are some enemies that that resist both ground and steel, so in that case we use our bug type X-Scissor. This is kind of a coverage move to deal with grass type Pokemon, dark type Pokemon, and psychic types. All of them fall to X-Scissor pretty well. Note that even against a super effective Pokemon, X-Scissor doubles to 160 power, you can think of it that way, which is just slightly more than Earthquake. So usually Earthquake actually does the job most of the time. Now, just like with Tyranitar, sometimes we are up against enemies that have no way of touching us or doing massive amounts of damage, in which case we can set up Swords Dance. This is a skill that doubles our attack. And let me put it this way, an Excadrill with Swords Dance under Sandstorm is going to wipe the floor. It's going to completely demolish any enemy team it chances across. Enemies won't even get a chance to act, and with your double attack, well, things are gonna fall. Even if you cannot land a super effective hit, yeah, it doesn't really matter when your attack is double. So that's the amazing part of Excadrill. The fact that you can just sweep through an enemy's team after setting just a single sword stance. Most of the time though, you'll be playing your offensive moves outright so that you know, you can clear enemies away potentially before they get a chance to act. I should also go back and mention that Tyranitar's skill set is not optimal. Instead of running Earthquake, you could run Superpower instead. It's a fighting move with 120 base power, and that gives you coverage against normal types as well, which I am struggling with. Yeah, we don't really have any fighting moves on this team, so having some way to hit normal enemies is pretty good. It also deals with dark type enemies, and is just a more powerful move in general. Base 120 power allows it to match up with Rock Slide and Crunch. So yeah, definitely worth looking into. It costs 10 shards, I think, 10 blue shards, so couldn't afford it yet, but Earthquake is a nice decent substitute. And finally, to round off our team, we have the one and only Garchomp, my favorite Pokemon. Very well-rounded stats and super good attack and speed. It also has the Dragon type, which is incredibly powerful in Generation 5, this generation of games, because without the Fairy type to check it, the only thing it's weak to is Ice. But more importantly, Dragon attacks are effective against all types except Steel. So this means that you don't really have to worry about your strong Dragon type move not being effective against enemies. It will always hit, and it will hit so hard. But first, let's look at this ability. Sand Veil is Garchomp's ability, and it will give us 20% evasion. This makes the team, you know, it gives us some wiggle room. It makes this a lot more player friendly in the sense that if you make 1 or 2 mistakes in selecting your moves during the World Tournament, the 20% evasion might help bail you out and might give you a little more breathing room in case you make mistakes here and there. So yeah, don't count this out. When you're getting hit by 4 times effective ice attacks, for example, that 20% evasion is basically a 20% chance to get a free focus sash, which is always nice. Right, so let's look at the moves. There are not that many. Just like the first 2 Pokemon, we are mostly interested in stab moves. So being Dragon and Ground type, we take the most powerful moves of those we can find, Outrage and Earthquake, slam them on this bad boy and call it a day. The last 2 moves really are not that relevant because no other move comes even close to eclipsing the power of Outrage. At 180 power, after factoring in same type attack bonus, yeah, there's very little. What else do you need, right? 180 base power move that hits all Pokemon except for Steel types. Bonus, if you're up against Dragon type Pokemon, it does double damage, effectively, you know, one-shotting your enemies. So there's really no need for any other move. Of course, Outrage has a downside. You can only use it 2 to 3 times before you get confused, and that signals the end of your Garchomp, because once you start hitting yourself in confusion, you're probably going down. But that being said, in a tournament where it's a 3v3 singles tournament, by the time you've expended your Outrage, the battle's probably already over. You've probably won by now. So yeah, this is a very simple Pokemon. Click Outrage and win. Item of choice here is actually quite interesting because most, you know, our last 2 moves don't matter at all. There's a very strong reason to bring Choice Band instead of Life Orb, which is what I have on my Garchomp here. Choice Band gives you plus 50% to your physical attacks, whereas Life Orb only gives you 30% and damages you every single turn you use an attack. So yeah, Choice Band is probably better, but Life Orb has the advantage of allowing more flexibility. You can, if you're bringing out your Garchomp early, for example, if your Tyranitar was wiped out early on and you're bringing in Garchomp as your second Pokemon, typically you won't want to click Outrage immediately because you might finish your Outrage before the battle ends. So you might want to do a couple of Earthquakes first and then finish off the rest of that Pokemon with Outrage. In which case Life Orb gives you that option, whereas with Choice Band you're stuck into one attack for the entire duration of the battle until you switch out. And yeah, you don't really want to be switching out most of the time because yeah, whatever you're switching out into is going to take a lot of damage, and that's not good. So yeah, it's a very straightforward strategy, and there's not much to say. All the Pokemon are trained very similarly. I've bred them to have as much attack and speed as possible in both the IV and EV department. Of course, I don't have all day to breed the perfect Pokemon. Yeah, that will take lots and lots of time. So I just focus on the most important stats, which are in this case attack and speed. So I maximize the EVs in attack and speed, and for IVs I ensured that they were at least 28 or higher. So this means that the attack and speed stats that you see for my level 50 Pokemon are very close to being ideal, right? So yeah, speaking of ideal, these Pokemon all have an ideal nature. Unfortunately, that also comes with breeding, and as I don't have the time to breed the perfect Pokemon, I just had to settle on what was available to me. But the most important thing for me was to get plus speed on Tyranitar and Garchomp. These two Pokemon really need the extra speed to be able to compete against the fastest Pokemon that are in the tournament. You always want to go first, because if you're going last, you can't flinch your opponent and you're taking unnecessary damage. So every single point of speed counts, to the point where you need the plus speed nature to help you with that. With Excadrill, the speed does not really matter because you are going to outspeed anything under Sandstorm anyway, in which case an adamant nature, something that gives you plus attack, is ideal. I wasn't able to get plus attack nature for my Excadrill. The one that I got happened to have very good IVs already, so I just left the nature as it is, which was plus defense minus special attack, which is still okay. Minus special attack, it's the best you can hope for as far as the negative nature goes. Again, if I had complete control over the natures of the Pokemon, I would choose a minus special attack nature for all three Pokemon, and a plus speed nature for Garchomp and Tyranitar, plus attack nature for Excadrill. But as you see, we are still cruising through the Pokemon World Tournament, even though we don't have anything near ideal stats. As it turns out, as long as you have maximum, or at least close to maximum, attack and speed, there's not much that can really stop you in your tracks. For those of you interested in building this team yourself and attempting the Pokemon World Tournament like I did, yes, all two of you watching this right now, I would recommend using Pokemon Black 2 instead of White 2, because Garchomp is not obtainable in White 2. In Black 2, you are gifted a shiny Gible, which is the pre-evolution of Garchomp, in the post-game. Whereas in White 2, you are gifted a Dratini instead. So on the off chance that you want to give this a whirl for yourself, keep that in mind. There is a difference between both games. Other final tips. It may actually be worth it to equip Tyranitar with either a Choice Band or a Choice Scarf, as opposed to the Chopo Berry right now. As they always say, the best defense is a good offense, and Choice Scarf and Choice Band help you get there by wiping out your opponents that much faster. I do like the ability to pivot between Rock Slide, Crunch, and Earthquake or Superpower, depending on the scenario, depending on what Pokemon are brought in by the opposing trainer, but perhaps Raw Power is the way to go. That's something that's worth experimenting if you decide to try out this team. Also take note that the choice items, Life Orb and Focus Sash, are not available until you have racked up some battle points in the Pokemon World Tournament. All these things cost 24 battle points, so until you get there, you need to figure out the next best items to equip on your team. That being said, I managed to get by just fine using Expert Belt on Excadrill and Dragon Gem on Garchomp to ensure that the first Outrage always kills whatever's in front of us. The Chopo Berry can be obtained in Join Avenue. You need a level 6 Flower Shop or higher, and the Flower Shop must be of the correct kind. There's 4 different kinds of Flower Shops you can get. Only one of them yields a Chopo Berry. For more information on that, go check out your trusty Pokemon wiki, or as they call it, your Wikiberry. Right, so that's more or less about it. Not much else to say about the team, and as you can see, I am doing pretty well in the tournament. I'm not by any means getting you know, winning every single game with all 3 Pokemon alive. That's not happening, but as you can see, I can cruise through most battles and win them fairly comfortably. So that's the whole point of this team, and it can deal with the best of the best, the champion battle as well. So hope you found this interesting, and perhaps that might give you an idea as to the sort of team that you can build. Even if you're playing Sword and Shield now, for example, Tyranitar and Excadrill has always been and is still a very strong combo. So yeah, thanks for watching. See you next time.